Blue Velvet, directed by David Lynch. It was released in 1986, a neo-noir mystery that has become a cult classic. It stars Kyle MacLachlan as Jeffrey Beaumont. He's a college student who discovers a severed human ear when he's walking through the park in his idyllic little town called Lumberton or something. And that ear kind of leads him on a journey into the underworld of this idyllic society. It also stars Isabella Rossellini as Dorothy Valens, this creepy, sort of cute nightclub singer. Dennis Hopper, who is kind of chilling as Frank Booth, and Laura Dern, who is Kyle MacLachlan's girlfriend. I kind of love this. Like I said, did I ever say that already?
Yeah.
For Lynch, he'd done a few films, but this was really, I think, his breakout. And it was controversial. It was sexy and violent and had everyone up in arms. For Kyle MacLachlan, I think it kicked off his career as well. Laura Dern, Dennis Hopper, I think, was kind of a renaissance for him. So it just had everything. What does it have in common with Longlegs, you ask?
Can I just throw one thing in
Yes.
here? I did a little bit of research knowing you were going to talk about this.
Yes.
And Roger Ebert at the time was saying about this film, if you look back and find an old review, some people are calling it a masterpiece, some people are calling it sick and twisted, and some people are calling it a sick and twisted masterpiece. So that just feels in itself like it's related to Longlegs at the moment, the way people are viewing it. Maybe not as a masterpiece, but they're definitely riding the line of the line of, is this an amazing film? Is this sick and twisted? I don't know, it could be both.
That's completely the same. So let's hope for Oz that Longlegs, has a life like Blue Velvet has, because
Sure.
it's seminal. So what reminded me of Blue Velvet was, I guess, you sort of got me onto it when you said it's disturbing, rather than it being a horror movie. It's just a disturbing movie, or worse, that effect. And this is the quintessential disturbing movie where that ear at the start is just so out of place, and so it's a premonition of what's to come. I think they say it's a strange world. That's the oft repeated line. And Oz Perkins, I think in the interview that I listened to today, he said that he wasn't necessarily referencing horror movies, other than Silence and Seven, but more wondering, well, why don't we make My Own Private Idaho? Or so there were other films stylistically that were in his mind.
I can see that. Yeah.
And I reckon the likes of Blue Velvet is, I'll cut to the chase of the main thing, and that's the Nick Cage conversation, how I said that he's bigger than the film, not integrated to the film. So Frank Booth, who is played by Dennis Hopper, was probably the first big, ridiculous character that I've ever come across in my film journey. Like he kind of doesn't fit. Do you remember him with the oxygen mask and everything?
Yeah, it's a wild performance.
It's wild.
Yeah.
And yet, as a film, it still works. I think that the Lynch world is so crazy enough that it can contain Frank Booth.
Yeah, it's amazing, isn't it?
Whereas the other world didn't really fit with
you're talking about
Longlegs.
Yeah, in Longlegs, Nick Cage's character works as as a monster. But once you get past that's creepy. Oh my God, what did I just see? Element of it, his character starts to fall apart a little bit. There's not a lot grounding that character.
Yeah, and that's where we get into the kind of the duality of human nature, where in Blue Velvet you have Kyle MacLachlan. Basically, there's just a kid who's a nice kid, but he's also wrestling with kind of getting a bit off on this underbelly of society.
Sure.
And even there's a scene where he's shacking up with Isabella Rossellini, and she's asking him to hit me, and the camera starts shaking, representing kind of the demon in Kyle MacLachlan's soul, and you can tell that he's wrestling with these two parts of himself.
Yeah.
And Frank Booth as well, like he's a maniac, but there are moments when he's watching her in the nightclub and he's crying, listening to Blue Velvet.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that I think is present to some extent in Longlegs, especially in Micah Munro, where she's wrestling with her own goodness and the devil in the doll.
Yes.
But not as well realised.
No, I think not. Was there anything else in Blue Velvet that in particular sort of grabbed you as a reminds me of for this?
Well, I'll make it a quickie, but it's the notion of parents in films. And I'll preface this by saying, after he says, I'll make this a quickie, and then he starts doing prefaces. Oz Perkins, in this interview I listened to again, said that the real story behind this film is that he grew up with a famous dad, Anthony Perkins of Psycho fame, and who was in the closet, who was gay.
Ah.
So his mum, through his childhood, was basically holding this secret from him and not telling him, kind of for his own good.
Great.
So that
not great, but what a great seed for a story.
Yeah, which in turn reminds me of Maestro.
Yes. Yes.
But yeah, that was the kernel of truth for him in this film. Yeah. So therefore, the relationship between Micah Munro and is it Alicia Witt?
I can't remember.
No, I'm not sure. And her mum.
Yes.
Is quite important, and thematically, just the idea of the parent, the parent and the adult world keeping stuff from the child or the kids, and that is ever present in Blue Velvet as well, where you've got these kids doing this mystery, and there's this layer of parents who, like the Laura Dern's father is the cop, who are keeping the real menacing things from the kids.
That's great. That's great. I didn't know any of that. That actually does add an element of depth to some of what's in this film that I hadn't picked up on. That's great.